Welcome to SVG-TV News for Wednesday, June 17th, 2020. I am Bacchus-Baptiste with the details. Effective July 1st, 2020, persons entering SVG will have to comply with a set of protocols and guidelines aimed at minimizing any new introduction of COVID-19 into the country. This is according to Prime Minister Dr. Gonsalves, who on the radio today said that the protocols were drafted by the relevant authorities, including the COVID-19 task force, and they are in keeping with the guidelines of the World Health Organization, the WHO, and the Caribbean Public Health Agency, CAFA. The new guidelines will be implemented in phases, and from next month, all persons entering SVG will have to do a PCR COVID-19 test and quarantine accordingly.
The 31st. This phase will be used to determine the incidence of COVID-19 in passengers arriving from different countries. All travelers to SVG will have a PCR COVID-19 test done on arrival. Remember, this test is not taking blood. This is a nasal swab. We are managing risk and we have to open up. Well, we never closed, properly speaking, but we had restrictions.
The second phase for the guidelines will be implemented in August, where information gathered from phase 1 will be used to determine how travelers in and out of SVG are managed. PM Gonsalves said in the second phase, SVG and other CARICOM countries will have lesser restrictions on the re-entry, with the exception of Suriname, Belize, and Haiti.
You'll have to have a COVID-19 questionnaire which you fill out. But there will be no COVID-19 laboratory tests. They use other forms of detection. Like, for instance, I say the people observing you, the temperature tests, the temperature, and we're having those with the more sophisticated cameras, which would be at the ports of entry, to be able to gauge the temperature. Testing is more accurate than some others. The non-CARICOM bubble, that is the people know outside of these CARICOM ones. PCR testing on arrival. You'll have a 24-hour quarantine, because you wait the result in your home or in the hotel.
The final draft of the protocols and guidelines were expected to be presented to Cabinet today for approval. PM Gonsalves said that the management and containment of COVID-19 is critical at this time as countries in the region begin to open up their borders.
The Minister of Tourism and Glen Beach had yesterday a detailed session with Roger Duncan and myself. Simone was doing something else, but she had been involved in this, and she and I had been in contact in a lot of detail. So this is part of the management in going forward. And this was important for Glenn and Cess to get, because the airlines need to know.
The Prime Minister said the 50% reduced departure tax will remain in effect. And Minister of Finance Camillo Gonsalves reports that COVID-19 has hit SVG's economy like a hurricane, as many persons have been thrown out of business or became unemployed. He made this known at yesterday's ceremony for the second batch of Prime Grant awardees at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs conference room, where he said more than 260 businesses were directly affected by the COVID-19 pandemic and are struggling at this time.
The NIS tells me that 261 businesses that pay money to the NIS have either shut down completely or partially. 261 Vincentian businesses in a small country like ours. The NIS is offering unemployment benefit to people who have been displaced because of COVID, and the government is offering displacement supplementary income to people in the hospitality sector who have lost their job when all the hotels closed down. And those two together represent almost 2,500 Vincentians who have lost their job since March.
The finance minister said that revenues declined by 20% last month. However, SVG has done well compared to countries where revenues reduced by 50%. He also noted that approximately 15,000 Vincentians are receiving some form of assistance from the government's COVID-19 stimulus package.
On the pensions, for the first month, the pensioners got an extra payment. That was over 8,000 pensioners who got that support. Add it all up. And I haven't spoken of the farmers. Farmers getting seeds, fertilizer, inputs. Add it all up. And you're talking about 15,000 plus Vincentians getting some sort of support through this COVID period from the government. And that doesn't count the banks and the credit unions telling people who have a mortgage or a loan, there's a moratorium, you don't have to pay a loan right now. Because
Minister Gonsalves added that the uncertainty of when things will return to normal is baffling and challenging for the country.
Nobody can tell us yet when all the airports will be open and all the hotels will be full, and when those 261 businesses can resume work. We don't know. So we're in a difficult time, and it's difficult to plan because precisely when you need more money, you're earning less money. And you're business people out here, all of you in this audience are business people. So you know that's a terrible problem to have. You need more money to build your isolation centers and get your ventilators and your rapid tests and your drugs. You need more money to help the unemployed people. You need more money to help the farmers, but you're making 20% less money than you made last year.
Tomorrow's sitting of Parliament has been postponed to Monday, July 22nd, 2020. Prime Minister Dr. Ralph Gonsalves on radio today said his input is necessary at this Parliament sitting where important decisions has to be made, but there was a clash of his schedule with a meeting for OECS Day.
Tomorrow, the 18th of June, we have an OECS. A meeting was called pretty late. Tomorrow is actually OECS Day, but we have a heads of government meeting, and I was going to be the only person who not agreeing, so I didn't want to have them postpone the thing when everybody else satisfied with that date. So move the Parliament to Monday. We're not losing any real time. Rather than do it on Thursday, we do it on Monday.
At Monday's sitting of Parliament, there are 18 questions listed for oral answers, along with 3 bills which will receive their first readings, one of which is the Modern Parliament and Modern Courthouse Projects Loan Authorization Bill 2020. PM Gonsalves said this bill is important and involves a $20 million loan from the Republic of Taiwan.
There's an important bill which we're going to do all stages. It's called the Modern Parliament and Modern Courthouse Projects Loan Authorization Bill. We have come to a conclusion with the Taiwanese, and we get the number for the $20 million for 10 for the new Parliament building, 10 for the Modern Parliament building, 10 for the Modern Court project. It's the money, the terms, in summary, the money is loan for 20 years, 3 years grace at LIBOR plus 1.2%. LIBOR is the London Interbank offered rate, which is now, if you check it, if you check LIBOR to see what LIBOR is this morning, well, it has to be the 6 months LIBOR.
Also at the sitting, the resolution seeking Parliament approval for patient access to medical cannabis is expected to be moved by Minister of Agriculture, Forestry and Fisheries, Soboto Caesar. The opposition New Democratic Party has started a new initiative called Election Watch, where Senator and lawyer Bacchus-Baptiste will be educating the public on their rights under the Representation of the People's Act. At an NDP's virtual meeting last evening, Bacchus-Baptiste said the main objective of the initiative is to ensure a fair election.
Education of voters, Section 4. No person shall vote in more than one constituency. No person shall vote more than once in the same constituency. One should produce an ID card before voting, but he or she can vote without producing an ID card once the presiding officer is satisfied of his or her identity and the person's name is on the list. Offenses and penalties, Section 22. Any person who makes a false claim or statement to be included in the register of votes for a constituency he is not qualified to be so included is guilty of an offense and is liable to a fine of $750 and to imprisonment for 6 months.
Bacchus-Baptiste said an issue of concern is the electoral list or voters list, which must be cleaned up before the upcoming general elections are held.
I have in my hand a list of dead persons, hundreds and hundreds of names that are still on the list and that should be removed. I have the name, the area they came from, the address, the date of death, where they are buried, the date of the burial. Full details. On the Section 7, you must remove them from the list if they are dead. I am reminding persons of what is happening right now in Guyana. Hundreds of dead people voted. The government was able to show the death certificates of these people. We have this list. And we are going to ensure that no dead person voted in St. Vincent election.
The opposition senator said Vincentians must be assured that they will not allow their vote to be in vain.
I am giving you all our solemn promise, my dear people. Your vote this time will not be in vain. They have to sanitize the list. We brought a member's bill to Parliament to a motion to reform the RPA, primarily to give us an independent electoral commission. We drafted the legislation. We looked at legislation in all the Caribbean islands, including Trinidad, Jamaica, Barbados, Antigua, St. Lucia, with an independent electoral commission. St. Vincent remains where the electoral office is under the purview of the Prime Minister.
The World Pediatric Project has extended aid to the underprivileged amid the COVID-19 pandemic. The non-profit organization, with support from stakeholders, has embarked on a mission outside of the usual scope of providing critical tertiary health care to offer a one-off assistance in essentials as a form of comfort to Vincentian families. The project is being rolled out in 2 phases. A news release said the initiative, WPP COVID-19 Aid, is expected to help at least 200 families who would receive hope and care packages which contain obtain essential supplies that will offer substantial comfort during the challenging times as a result of the pandemic. Each Hope and Care package is estimated to cost $600 EC. Phase 1 of the project, which commenced on Monday, June 15th, was executed over a 3-day period and was expected to conclude today. During Phase 1, the local WPP team delivered packages to families on the windward side of the island as far as Fancy, to the leeward side as far as Chateaubelair. Other areas, including the Grenadines, are expected to receive packages in the second phase. WPP Executive Director Eastern Caribbean Lauren McIntosh indicated her delight at the opportunity to assist families, noting that they are fortunate to have stakeholders who can make it possible for them to extend assistance to WPP families in such challenging times. The remaining phase of the WPP COVID-19 aid is expected to roll out at the beginning of July 2020, which will see at least another 100 families benefiting from the Hope and Care package. In other news, SVG joins the rest of the world today in observing Desertification and Drought Day under the theme Food, Feed, Fiber. Every year on June 17, the United Nations Convention to Combat Desertification is celebrated, which is an internationally legally binding agreement on land issues. The OECS Secretariat said the focus of World Day to Combat Desertification and Drought 2020 is particularly relevant to member states, given limited land resources, patterns of land allocation and utilization, and persistent struggles to realize the ideal of sustainable production and consumption. SVG's focal point for the United Nations Convention to Combat Desertification and Drought, Fitzgerald Providence, said the theme for this year's Drought Day was chosen to stress the importance of protecting the environment.
To show the importance of protecting the environment and protecting sustainable land management to ensure that we have food and feed and fiber, because all of our food is dependent on good soil, good land management practices so that we can ensure sustainable food production. Also, a lot of our clothes we wear, the fiber we use in buildings and also in clothing, they come from the land. And therefore it is important for us to protect our land, protect our soils, to ensure sustainable development in our countries.
Providence said while SVG doesn't have deserts, it is faced yearly with challenges of drought, especially in the Grenadines, hence the reason for SVG to observe the importance of the day.
On the Grenadines, we are challenged because we have the Grenadine Islands, which are drier islands than mainland. We also face drought. Just this year, we experienced one of the worst droughts in the past few decades. And we are challenged by land degradation in that the way we use our land. When we go on the steep slopes and till the soil, or we burn the forests or the vegetation on steep slopes, they will erode easily with rainfall. And that is degrading the land because you're removing the topsoil, the nutrient-filled humus layer that is on the topsoil. You're destroying that. And also you're destroying the integrity of the soil so that when it rains, the soil moves quickly and goes downstream and then ends up on our reefs, our nearshore reefs. And this is where land degradation occurs in terms of you degrade the productivity of the land, and then you also destroy the aquatic and marine environment with silt and soil debris, which chokes the coral reefs and also affects the marine life and the aquatic life.
The head of the Forestry Department used the opportunity to encourage Vincentians to stop land degradation and recognize the importance of land and soil to the environment.
In St. Vincent and the Grenadines, we are looking at our land degradation neutrality targets. This is to ensure that we stop degrading our lands. And when we degrade our lands, it means that you make the land unproductive. and therefore you cannot produce food, you cannot produce fiber, and we cannot feed ourselves. So it's important for us in St. Vincent and the Grenadines to recognize the importance of land and soil in our development and protect it, sustainably manage it so that we can have neutral land degradation and also that we can have sustainable food production for future generations.